Hey, Nicholas, thanks for sending your picture here. Yeah, I'll give you some really simple ideas to make it really look good. I think your primary light that you're going to want to use is the accent light with a slight modification, and I can help you customize something that fits for you too, based on that. But what I would probably do is with those accent lights, I would really try and highlight the front of the house and get some of these second story peaks. Now, how we're going to go and do that is getting those accent lights, those up lights that I just showed you, kind of at the base of the house, fairly close, because it's a little higher up, maybe about 18 inches back, and have those almost shining straight up on kind of on both sides of the shutters, and it's going to do a really good job of highlighting this whole section of the house. I would do the same on both sides of the doors over here. Even though you have these, you're not going to have them on all the time, and really all that's going to light is this section here, whereas now we're going to highlight this whole top area as well as the whole entryway. So having two of those lights positioned down here, and then same thing on this side here as well, kind of below the shutters, and have them shining straight up. So 6 up lights on this front section. And the one suggestion I will make is with the 2 that you're going to have by the door here, I would just also add something like this, which is a hex baffle, and all it is, it's this little honeycomb filter that fits over the lens of the lights, just underneath here, and all it does is it helps deflect the glare a little bit, so as you're walking in and out of the house, you don't have that light shining in your eye. And then the other suggestion I'm going to make too is with a lot of the up lights, and these ones in particular, they come with a 20 watt equivalent bulb. So what it is, it's a 4 watt LED bulb that puts out about 250 lumens. But in order to get that light to that kind of second story, I think you're going to want to increase the intensity of that to a 35 watt equivalent, which is about a 5 watt LED bulb, which is going to put out a little bit more light and push that light to the top. So I think for these 6 lights, you're going to want to do that. And again, if that makes sense to you and it's something you want, we can definitely customize a kit that has that in it for you. And then on this side here, I would just use 3 of the standard accent lights, the 20 watt equivalent. Kind of the same idea on side of the shutter, one in the middle, and then another one on this side of the shutter to highlight this front section here. So really 9 accent lights, and 6 of those a little bit brighter to cover this front section. And then something else you're probably going to want to do, and you can always do this after, but I think what's going to happen is you're going to miss out on lighting some of these second story peaks, which is something that not a lot of landscape lighting designs incorporate, but it's easy to do, and it will really help take your project kind of the next level, because I guarantee you anybody else who's doing it on their own is not doing that. And how you would go do that is actually quite simple. It's simply by running the wire right up the eaves trough and along the gutter. You can just drop it right down, make any connections you need in the ground, and then your connection for the light, you can make it right in the eaves trough. All our connections are waterproof and can sit in there. And then you would mount that with something called a gutter mount. So basically this just fits right inside the gutter, screws to the side, and the fixture screws into here, as opposed to a ground stake. And the way I would do that is I would probably try and mount one. I would probably try and mount an accent light. So same accent light, there's different lights you can use. Sometimes a wash light is bright enough. And when I talk about a wash light, really I'm talking about one of these guys. It's not as intense of a light, it's a softer light. I like using this a lot of the time when doing that, but I just don't think it's going to be quite bright enough for this area, as well as this area. So I think you'd want to use just a standard accent light there, and also here. And then here you could use a wash light because this is a smaller peak. You could do this section here. That being said, I think lighten up this area, and if you have this peak and this peak, the 2 larger ones lit up, might be enough. So really I think you'd be looking at a kit with just 5 of the standard up lights, 6 of the higher intensity accent lights, a couple hex baffles, a couple gutter mounts, and then the transformer wire and everything else you need. Something else you could do, I mean, you could always throw a couple path and garden lights in here if you wanted to. Just something simple like this. Really all it's going to do is light the walkway. And if you are going to do that, the only thing I would do is I would just stagger them in between your accent lights. So for example, if you have your your uplight and your uplight on both sides of shutters here, you may want to throw, so maybe you throw a path light in here, you throw one kind of here in between, you throw another one here in the middle of this, again over here in the middle of these two lights, and then another one over here. So I think that's something you can always add later. I think you're going to get the majority of your effect with those uplights that I talked about. So if that makes sense and you need us to put a kit together for you that has everything in that, please let me know, and we're happy to do that. Thanks so much, Nicholas.
Okay guys, so here we have an example of a wash light, and why we're using it on a spot like this is, if you'll notice behind me, we got kind of a nice textured wall behind us. But it's only about 4 feet high, so I don't need anything super bright. I don't need to throw light way to the top. All I want to do is I kind of want to catch some of the plant life that's in this bed here, kind of create some shadows back on the wall, and then just gently highlight all the rock that I've got behind me. So that's a great example of when to use a wash light. One of the tricks that you'll find anytime you're using any kind of an uplight, whether it's an uplight or it's a wash light, is you're almost always going to want to shine it and tilt it. And if I was smart, I would have put the screw here on the other side, but you almost always want to tilt it more upright than you actually think. So you don't have to keep it straight upright, but if you think you need to angle it like this, I would say probably take a notch or two like that and aim it a little more upright. And what that's going to do is it's just going to create a little bit of a softer light, less of a hot spot, and you're going to catch more of the actual plants in the house rather than just the ground cover below. So that's a good tip anytime you're using any kind of uplight. Once you've kind of got that notched in, you can go and just tighten that up. The other thing I like about these lights is that all these lights, especially the ones from FX Luminaire, not all lights are created equal, but they come with a 10-foot lead wire. So I just talked about leaving extra wire in the ground. Well, now you got another 10 feet. Why that's important is your landscape's going to change over the years. And what that allows you to do now is you can go move this light, play around with it, move it in the landscape without having to rewire it, which is a pain in the butt when you got to start digging up connections and you get the grease all over your hands. It's just not fun. So just make sure when you go to wire those lights, which I'll talk about in a bit, you leave that extra wire in the ground, bury it so that it's always there, that you can use it at a later date. Okay guys, so here we have our uplight. Like I said earlier, by far the most popular light, the light that you're going to use the most in most of your landscape lighting projects. But if you'll notice here, it's not just for trees. It's a great light to use if you're trying to uplight a tree. And some quick tips about that is, you know, same as when you're doing a house, you don't want to have it far back pointing at the tree. You're almost always better off having it more upright like this underneath the base of a tree than pointing at the tree. It creates a much more natural effect, a much softer light. So that's a good rule of thumb. There's different wattages. The reason I like these uplights, in particular these ones, you can get them with something called integrated fixtures, where it basically has like an LED board built right into the light. The only problem with that is that if you've never done landscape lighting before and you buy the wrong light and it doesn't give you enough light or too much light, well, you can't go and just switch out that board. Or in some cases you can, but it's a lot of work. Whereas this, we just have an LED bulb that we can go and switch out, so that down the road in 5-10 years when that burns out, we can easily just go and replace that with any other LED MR16 bulb. So I like that. Plus, if you're new to the doing landscape lighting and you don't know which bulb to use, well, if you put in a bulb that's not bright enough, well, then you can always just go and change it for a brighter bulb. Same thing, as your landscape grows, and as your trees grow, sometimes you might want to put a brighter bulb in there. This easily allows you to do that with this light. So that's why I love using this uplight, but it doesn't just have to be on trees. It can be on architectural features of the house like this. We got some nice stone columns that we're gonna really be killing two birds with one stone here. We're gonna gently uplight this so it brings out all the little subtleties in the rock. But then what's gonna happen too is that light is gonna make it up to that top soffit, and it's gonna kind of create a nice glow that's actually gonna give us some porch lighting too. Even though we have porch lights here, they're very bright, whereas this is gonna give us a nice subtle glow, and this is more gonna give us the effect from the street and from the curb appeal with just some functional lighting up top. So again, why I really like this light. The one thing we are gonna do with this one, because it's close to a porch, an area we're gonna be walking by, is we're gonna use something called a hex baffle. All a hex baffle is this little aluminum shield that basically just goes over top of the bulb. So if you take this off, throw that underneath the glass, and then pop that back on, what that's going to do is it's going to soften the light a little bit, but more importantly, it's going to deflect any of that side glare. So as you're walking around and by that light, less of that light is going to hit your eye, and it's going to be more concentrated on the nice columns that we have here. So that's something you want to use anytime you're kind of lighting the entryway of your house or by a walkway or something like that. Hex baffle is a really good tool to have. And the last thing I'll mention about this uplight, when you are lighting some trees, a good rule of thumb, if you're using a 4-watt LED lamp that puts out about 250 lumens, great for trees that are 8 to roughly 15 to 20 feet high. I would say from about 25 to 35 feet, you want to use a slightly brighter bulb, closer to a 5-watt LED bulb. And then when you get into some really big trees that are over that 35-foot mark, you probably want to go and start looking at a 6-watt LED bulb so that you can really push that light into the canopy. But that's why you're going to use this light for 70 to 80% of the places in your yard, because it's such a versatile light. It does so many things, and that's the reason that we use so many of these year after year. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys got some great do-it-yourself landscape lighting tips. Now, please be sure to go to our website at lightingdoctor.ca and check out our how-to page. It's full of great resources, from our podcast to our video to our most frequently asked questions. And also check out our Try It Before You Buy It light, where you can actually go now and get one of our premium quality uplights and a King Innovation Insta-Light, which is basically a battery pack now that allows you to go and run those lights and test them out on your property. Try it for 14 days. If you don't love it, send it back to us and we'll give you a full refund. And if not, you keep the light at a discounted rate and go and buy what you need for your project. So thanks again for watching. Please be sure to leave us a comment. We'd love your feedback. Have a great day.